Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, A/B Testing for WordPress and Drupal, what developers need to know about A/B testing. Your speakers for today are Matt Stodolnik, VP of Marketing and Alliances here at Pantheon, along with our guest speakers, Brad Taylor and Matthew Auerbach of Optimizely. Just a few housekeeping items to go over before we start. Please make sure you submit any questions you have during the presentation in the question window, or tweet them at GetPantheon. We will answer as many of the questions as we can during the Q&A portion of today's presentation. Also, this webinar will be recorded, and the recording will be made available to everyone next week. I'd now like to turn it over to Matt, Brad, and Matthew.
Hi, this is Brad Taylor, and I'm the Senior Front-End Engineer here at Optimizely, and I run the marketing site and a lot of our non-application products, and also I'm in charge of how we use Optimizely on Optimizely here.
And hi everyone, I'm Matt Auerbach. I'm a developer evangelist at Optimizely. I spend about half my time working with our developer community, so I go to our conferences and meetups, as well as spending about the other half of my time working on developer resources, so things like our developer documentation and our demo application.
And hi, this is Matt Stodolnik. I look after marketing and alliances here at Pantheon. We have launched about 150,000 websites, and we work with about 2,500 agencies who build the majority of those websites. So we're in a really fortunate position to see kind of the most modern techniques for website development and testing. So I'm going to share a little bit about what we see happening in the market and what we are doing internally. So quick agenda. Our friends at Optimizely are going to kind of cover the basics of A/B testing with some 101. And then I'll tell you about Pantheon's journey getting started with testing, and then back to the Optimizely team where they'll show a demo of some more advanced features that they're implementing on their own site. And then they'll share some more technical aspects of A/B testing in their platform.
All right, thanks, Matt. So to get started, I want to talk about Experimentation 101. So when thinking about the importance of experimentation, it's really helpful to look at some experimentation leaders. So we have here Amazon and Netflix. And they're known in the industry for having experimentation at their core. And what this means is anytime they develop a new product or work on a new feature, or they want to test a new marketing message or change something about their operations, they run it as an A/B test. And this allows them to leverage the scientific method to focus on pure data coming in rather than having to rely on stakeholders who could potentially be biased, because like these could be people who like pitched the idea, or a product manager who's been working on it for a while. So these organizations really rely on this core data stream coming in order to make a business decision. And we've seen this with companies like Amazon in the sense that they've experimented on things like Amazon Prime, and they're even in the news now for this contactless payment supermarket, which seems pretty cool, as well as Netflix is pretty public about running experiments on their properties as well. And I actually saw this headline the other day, which is that Netflix was running an experiment on their homepage where they moved the UI elements around, and they were able to drive 20% increase in viewership to their content, which is obviously really awesome for their business. So this just shows you the power of experimentation and how they're able to iterate and refine their user experience. So to take a step back, I just want to talk about what is A/B testing. So simply put, A/B testing, or an A/B test, is comparing two variations of a web page to see which performs better. And the idea is that you have a control. So in this diagram below, on the left here, we have a control group, and that would essentially just be leaving the web page as is. And then on the right, we have some variation, and that would be adding some tweaks to the website to try to drive some metrics. So I put together this example here, and this really just to set this in action. So going back to the scientific method, let's start with our hypothesis. So I've added above that attracting more attention to the Shop Now button will increase in impressions and viewership to the site catalog. So as you can see on the left, I have our control group, and then on the right, I have this button here that I've made, like the background yellow, and I've just increased it. And the idea would be to drive more views to that button. So now I just want to talk through an example in the form of a case study. So at the core of Brooks is a shoe company. So they noticed a while back that they had a percentage of customers who were unsure of what shoe size would be perfect for them. So these users ended up purchasing like 2 to 3 different shoes in advance with the intention of actually returning them. So they knew that they needed to select more shoes because they were unsure as to which would be the perfect fit, and when they have them at home, they can try them on. And this obviously had a pretty big cost for Brooks. So one, in terms of just the cost of having to pay for shipping to bring those shoes back to Brooks, but really also an operational cost of processing those returns. So they wanted to come up with a new experience where once they've identified a user as size conscious, then they can provide them with some new experience to try to drive them to not purchase more than one pair of shoe. So for 50% of the users were actually presented with this new experience. So once Brooks identified someone as size conscious, they had this pop-up that would ask them to contact the customer service department, and they could call in or they could use live chat, and they would try to help them find the right shoe. And in the end, it ended up being a great win. It was a win-win in the sense that Brooks was able to drive down the return rate about 80%, as well as also increase customer happiness, because the customers ended up really enjoying the fact that they were able to talk to someone for customer service. What's also neat about this example is that A/B testing is not just about changing a button color, it's about fundamentally changing the user experience to drive some sort of like business metrics. So here we're actually like reducing cost rather than just focusing on things like conversions or increasing sales. So on this slide, I just wanted to show a brief preview of what that experiment looked like. So we can see the pop-up here when someone was identified as being size conscious. So now jumping back to Optimizely. So one way to run an experiment would be to use Optimizely's web product. So here I'm just diving into our visual editor. And in the visual editor, it enables anyone to run an experiment. So you don't need to have any prior knowledge of HTML or CSS. You can use the visual editor and really change any UI element. So you can change the text, you can hide an image, you can, for example, change the button color size and all that sort of stuff to try to optimize for specific metrics. So how does this work? So in order to run an experiment with Optimizely, you need to include a snippet on your site. And the snippet contains all the information about how the experiment should run. So once you put this snippet in your HTML page, it contains all sorts of things. So things like the active experiments, draft experiments, the metrics you want to track, as well as the audiences that you want to target. It also contains things like extensions, which we'll dive into in a little bit, as well as also the Optimizely logic. And you can find this snippet in your settings page within Optimizely. So now just bringing this back to Drupal and WordPress, so to experiment on these platforms, we have a few different tools there. So for Drupal, there's a Drupal module, and the Drupal module acts as a manager. And the manager allows you to control which pages include the Optimizely snippet and which pages don't. So if you include the snippet on the page, you'll be able to run an experiment. So you can simply click and uncheck the pages that you want the snippet to load on. And then for WordPress, it works a little differently, in the sense that you need to install the JavaScript snippet directly into your HTML file. So now I'm going to hand it back to Matt at Pantheon, who's going to walk you through how they've been running their A/B tests on their Drupal site using Optimizely.
Thanks, Matthew. Before we go into the details about what Pantheon's doing and how we got started, I wanted to go into a little bit more detail about what Matthew started around some of the basics. So here's the basics as I view them and our team views them, and this is maybe a more pragmatic approach, which is we have a small marketing team, one developer, one designer, and a handful of other marketers, and we all want to run tests. So this is how we got started. So first you need to secure the necessary tools. You need to use those tools to observe behavior, develop a hypothesis, create tests for your hypothesis, and analyze results. So a sort of modified version of the scientific method. Here's the tools that we selected. So number one, we use an open source CMS. We run both Drupal and WordPress websites here. every tool that we evaluate for our platform, they need to be JavaScript includes and based in a very easy to access SaaS model. So I think it's crazy that people would implement sort of heavyweight enterprise software to do any sorts of testing on their website. And then finally, of course, you need a good developer. We alluded a little bit to there is opportunity for a more advanced Drupal module and WordPress plugin. The functionality that they offer right now isn't significant, so we implement the JavaScript tracking code directly on the pages ourselves without use of the modules. So I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into some of these tools. First, within Google, there is Google Behavior Flow. And what Google Behavior Flow does is it allows people to track click streams, really, and observe where people are going, where they're spending their time. And what we use this for is where aren't people going? So if we have a new campaign or we have a new product feature that we want to drive traffic to this new message, we use this tool to see, are people going there? And if they are, where are they coming from? And we've implemented Crazy Egg, which is a more visual, a very simple visual analysis tool to look at not only what URLs are people getting to, but from within a page, what are people clicking on? What navigation items are people clicking on? What buttons are people clicking on? What videos are people clicking on? And this, again, gives us more insight. These two things together give us insight to, are people behaving the way we want them to behave? And if they're not, can we come up with some tests to sort of drive them into the right direction? So back to observing behavior. A very simple test we started with that I think is pretty common in any marketing organization for sure is, how do I get people to click on this button? Which is really, how do I drive registration? And obviously there's some subsequent actions that people need to take place, like completing the form. But it all starts with, how do I get more people to click on this button? And there's a really easy way to do that. And this is a great way for people who aren't doing A/B testing right now. It's a really easy way to get started. And here's an example of what we've done. So we have a website management platform that's free for developers to use. And we want to, as a marketing organization, we want to increase the amount of developers that sign up for our platform every month. So one of the things we test is, are we using the right language on our buttons, on our CTA, call to action buttons? So we have free dev account, that's what's live right now. We've tested create free account, free dev account, get started, sign up now. And this simple type of test, you don't actually even need Optimizely, and you don't need really sophisticated tools. What you can do is just basic measurement around how many impressions is a page getting with button A on it. Let that run for a while, record the number of impressions, record the number of clicks on the button, record the number of completed registrations, and then swap out the button for a new button and run the tests. And there's all sorts of online tools that are free that can help you test for statistical significance. So I don't list any here, but if you were to do a simple Google search for statistical significant tests web behavior, you'll come up with lots of simple forms that you enter your results, and they will give you a confidence interval. So next, I want to talk about a bigger question. So this is more about, can we change the behavior of our visitors to our website, and can we interact with them in a more meaningful way? Our idea to do this was to test like an entirely new homepage. So the goal of this test was, at the highest level, was we wanted to connect with our website visitors in a more meaningful way. And then our hypothesis was that we observed that fewer website visitors were visiting our developer tools pages than we felt appropriate. So we developed new messaging that we thought would be better communicate the value of those tools, and we thought that this new messaging would drive more traffic to these new pages. So simply put, we have a hosting platform and we have tools. And a lot of people register for our platform without being fully aware of our tools. So we wanted to see if we could drive more traffic to our tools pages. So prior to registration, developers would be aware of our tooling. So we developed the hypothesis, and we felt that we believe that new messaging will connect with visitors and that more visitors will navigate to our tools pages. And we thought that if we can more deeply connect with our visitors, that signups will increase. So then we created a test. We wanted to test our current homepage, and that's A, against a new homepage, which is going to be B. So in A/B test, you can really test anything. Testing a complete page like we did for this test requires more planning because there was redirection of traffic, and how do you do that? Do you want to do it by region? Do you have other cookies in play and you want to isolate people who came to your site from paid advertising or have been to your site before within the last day or 30 days? So it can get complicated, but we found the secret to testing is just testing, and going from 0 to your first test, you shouldn't really be bogged down with all of the details. Just look at a behavior that you want to change, develop a test, and implement the test. So here's our old homepage, and this was our control, also commonly called the A in an A/B test, and you'll note the URL pantheon.io. Here's the B, so new messaging. We implemented this as a new index page, which is pantheon.io/home. And our goal was to distribute traffic 50-50 to each one of these variations, and we didn't worry about any other historical behavior on our website. So the 3 things we were testing were engagement, the percent of visitors who clicked on any part of the experiment page. So we wanted to just, in general, see, does this new messaging, does this new homepage increase the number of clicks versus the old page? Next was traffic. Does this new homepage drive traffic to our tools pages more so than the old page? And finally, developer registration. Does this new page drive more developers or fewer developers? So here's some of the results. This was this is a screenshot from the Optimizely tool. So what I've highlighted as A is unique conversions. So this is the results of the engagement test. Visitors who clicked somewhere on the homepage. So we used to convert 42%, and the original, which is A, 42% of visitors clicked something on the homepage and continued on. The new homepage went up to almost 70%. So that was a 65% increase, and we had a 99% statistical significance associated with that. And these are the areas, difference, interval, statistical significance, these are the things where you want to have, or you're better off having a tool like Optimizely or another SaaS-based A/B testing platform in place, because it makes dealing with the math much easier, and it will reduce the opportunity to have false positives. Our next test about traffic, did we drive more traffic to our platform-specific pages? And so the orange is the chart that was converting a much higher rate than the blue, 113% improvement. And finally, our registration test, did more people who got to the homepage, our new homepage, did we convert more of those to free dev accounts? And we saw a 62% improvement. So for anyone on the call that is familiar with testing, we did an A/B test, homepage A versus homepage B, but what we really did was a multivariate test, because we didn't test one button and everything else remained the same. So a best practice for testing is try to change only one thing at a time so you can measure the impact of that one thing. But we were in a position where we believed strongly that the new messaging we had developed would have a great impact and lead to positive outcomes. So we implemented the entire thing all at once. So we were testing multiple things at one time. It's a whole new design. There's new calls to action. But overall, the story that we were telling was much different, and we believe that that is what drove the positive impact. Now that that's done, we're going into much more isolated A/B tests across all the different elements of the page. So I'm going to do one shout out to our product, which made the testing easier. So we have a feature in Pantheon called feature branching. And what that allowed us to do was work on our development team and our designer. We could work on the new navigation system in a branch of development. We could work on the new homepage in a different branch in dev. We could work on the 3 new products and platform pages on its own branch in dev. And all the while, we weren't interfering with the content team's ability to push out changes to the website. So when the new nav changes were ready to be launched, we took that feature branch, propagated it up to main dev, through to test, and into production. So that went live. And then we took all of those live changes and even what happened on the content side and brought them down into the feature branches. So we could continually work on the next test without having to slow down our sort of like daily marketing activities. All right, so next I'm going to hand it back over to Brad, and he's going to talk more about some finer points about A/B testing and what they've done at Optimizely.
All right, thanks, Matt. Actually, so I'm going to go through a few more slides, and then I'm going to hand it back to Brad, who's going to show us a demo. So to jump right back into it, I want to talk about the nitty-gritty of A/B testing. So I'm going to dive into a few different categories now. So to start off, I want to talk about why is A/B testing important and why should you really care about it. So for me, I think you can use A/B testing to improve the user experience. So we've seen this with companies like Amazon and Netflix. You can have your product managers, for example, try out new product features. You can drive specific key performance indicators. You can use tools like the visual editor to test messaging. You can have developers come in and test different algorithm performance. And then really also just thinking about this culture of experimentation, which is really core. So any time that anyone's developing something new, it should be automatically thought to be run as an A/B test. And that really takes form in working with your whole organization and the whole organization coming together and having this great experimentation program. So I'm now going to start off and just walk through what it would look like in Optimizely to work with your entire organization. So Optimizely makes it really easy to work with your whole organization in the sense that everyone can be invited as a collaborator. So we have a few different types with like different permissions, and we really think about this in the business users as well as the developers. So like business users can come in and use tools like the visual editor to run experiments, or they can look at experiment results, as well as developers can be more fine-grained and use these SDKs to experiment anywhere in their code. And again, everyone coming together to look at the results page in the sense that you can see how your experiment is performing really at any time. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about how that works with Stats Engine. To give you an idea of what it would look like to work with an entire organization, so you could work with folks across marketing, data science, engineering, operations, as well as the product team. So just to give a few examples, marketing could experiment on things like lead generation to drive new conversions to specific parts of your product. Data science can think about understanding different types of recommendation algorithms. Engineering can focus on that user experience and try different walkthroughs like we saw with Brooke. The operations team can really think about how they handle page load time as well as CDN caching, for example. And then the product team can think about rolling new features. And the whole organization can come together and hopefully drive things like revenue, reduce costs, and just build a brand. And hopefully this should all equate to maximizing profits. So before I mentioned that the whole organization can work with the results page, which is powered by Stats Engine. So I want to provide a little bit of context here. So just about 100 years ago, stats was really hard. The offline world just made it really difficult to capture data. And this was really because data was really expensive and data was slow. And once you felt like you had enough data, the practitioners who were going to review the data and review the results needed to be highly trained and really deeply understand how statistics work. Luckily today, in a very digital world, data is extremely cheap because there's tools like Optimizely that make it really easy to pipe this data and be able to capture all those data points. It's also in real time using tools like Stats Engine, as well as anyone can come in and look at the results at any time. And that's because Stats Engine is able to see the whole picture. So it will tell you when your results are statistically significant, like Matt mentioned, as well as the number of viewers or the number of visitors remaining until you reach that number. And like I mentioned before Stats Engine, it would be really hard because you weren't sure, for example, of the sample size. You might need to use a sample size calculator, as the one I provided to the right here. You also wouldn't want to, peek at the results. As tempting as it is, you could potentially see incorrect results. You could look too early, and you could see a peak that could be incorrect in the sense that it was a false positive, for example. And you wouldn't want to test too many goals or too many variations just because of the amount of time it took to capture that data. So if we think of a brief example, like around the 1920s, if you were to experiment with farming, so let's say you were to have two different areas where you were growing like crops, for example, you would have to manually count the number of seeds you've planted, and on some regular cadence, some metric might be the height of the plant, and you would manually have to actually measure the height. And then once you felt that you've reached a sample size that's statistically significant, you'd have to spend all this time coming up with, statistics around it. So again, Stats Engine is making this super easy, and you can look at your results at any time. So if we look at this graph to the right here, you can see how we have a few different peaks and waves, whereas Stats Engine is able to streamline everything, taking in the whole picture and accounting for things like the number of visitors remaining, and it will tell you an accurate depiction. So you don't need to get overly excited if you see something, for example, that's doing really well. And you can also test as many goals as you need. So again, really adding to that full picture. And then you can feel really confident in making huge business decisions, just like Brooks made, about how they fundamentally changed the way that they had their users work with the customer service department. So I'm going to switch gears a bit and now talk about the Optimizely platform from a developer perspective. So I've mentioned a few times how technical users can also leverage Optimizely, and they would use our developer SDKs. So these SDKs can be used in code to experiment anywhere. And I want to highlight the JavaScript SDK for this audience because it's extremely powerful for sites like Drupal and WordPress. So you can run experiments on your front end, and you can run directly within your HTML and JavaScript. So Brad's going to dive into some examples there as well. We also have a few developer tools. I'll just touch on a few of them. So if you want to build on top of or extend Optimizely, you could use our REST API. So the REST API controls all your experiments, so allowing you to manage things programmatically. Another tool that's really popular is data export. So that allows you to pipe all of your data out of Optimizely, and you can run more analysis on your own using other tools, or if you have an in-house team, for example, who wants to take a look. Lastly, just want to touch on our web tools. So we have a tool called Extensions that Brad's going to dive into pretty heavily. So in about a slide or two, I'll have him show you a little bit more there. But at a high level, extensions allow developers to produce templates or reusable modules using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And then anyone in the organization can come in and modify those and really tailor it for specific needs. So before I pass it to Brad, just to tie everything together, I just want to show you our platform as a whole. So this is our new platform called Optimizely X. We have a few different products. So Optimizely X for the web is the visual editor product that I've been speaking to. So it allows anyone to run experiments on their website. Full Stack is for developers who want to use SDKs on devices like your server or drones or an Oculus Rift. Even we also have a solution for mobile, so you can run on tablets and mobile devices, as well as over-the-top devices, or OTT. It should be things like an Apple TV or an Android TV. And again, it enables anyone in your organization to run experiments. You can test on any channel, as well as really focusing on those specific metrics that matter to your business. So now I'm going to pass it over to Brad, who's going to walk through an example of what I just spoke about.
Great. Thanks, Matt. So yeah, here at Optimizely, we use our products extensively, and one of the main features that we use is extensions. As you may have seen with the visual editor, a non-technical user can come in and they can make edits to the web page. But you as a developer may get a little anxiety about allowing the users to change anything on the page. So that's why we've developed this feature called extensions. What it does is it allows you to create reusable templates for making changes in the visual editor. So you can use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and allows you to define which fields a user can edit. And then they can also be used to add things to your site. So for instance, let's say you wanted to add a pop-up message or some sort of banner or a countdown timer. You can predefine these bits of code and allow your non-technical users to target these to particular audiences without needing to, come to you to be able to add these to the page. And we also have on our developer site a sample library of different extensions that we both use here at Optimizely and our customers have used as well. So with that, I'm going to kind of jump into how we're using, in one use case, extensions here at Optimizely. So if you go to our Optimizely homepage, you may see something like this. So we're doing a little bit of personalization here. We're just saying, it's morning time here in San Francisco, and we're saying, good morning, let's personalize some digital experiences for your customers. We're doing it based off time of day. We see a coffee cup. We come down here. We have, a random selection of media companies, different customers that use our products. However, what if I wanted to customize this a little bit more? Well, we do a lot of what's called account-based marketing here at Optimizely. And the way we do that is we use one of our partners' demand base, so that if we know information about the user's IP, we can then customize that a little bit better. And I'm using a tool called Mod Header. I'm going to show you what the New York Times would see if they came to our homepage. So if I go to optimizely.com, as you can see, I now say hello New York Times. It has a picture of the New York Times on an iPad, but then if I scroll down here, we've now changed the logos to be all media products that also use our brand. And we also give, you can try this out. You can go to our website, and there's a little take a peek. You can see what's being personalized on the page. So now how do we do this? So if I go into the product, we have our campaign set up here. And if I search for the New York Times option here, and I go into this, we can see that I have a homepage hero extension. Now I've predefined what a user can edit. I've said that they can edit the top headline, what the second headline is, whether it's visible. I also give them the ability to update the image. And where I set that up is here in the extensions editor. So all I have to do as a developer is create the JavaScript or HTML, CSS that is going to be used to create this change on the web page. Let's say someone came to you and said, oh, I also want to be able to change maybe the buttons or maybe the background color. Well, you as a developer can come in here and you can add a new field. And we have a bunch of different fields here from, different HTML. You could also do a drop-down, a color picker, different toggles. So kind of like a mini content management system, you can use and you can predefine what users will be able to edit on their site. Let me go back here. Excellent. So, so if you want to get started today with experimentation and try out extensions and personalization, you can go to developers.optimizely.com. That'll give you all the information, not only about our client-side product, but also our full-stack product and, for instance, the PHP SDK for full-stack. And you can also sign up for a free trial at optimizely.com/free trial. And with that, we'll open it up for questions.
All right, now is the time to submit your questions. We have a few in now, and it looks like this first one is for Optimizely. And that is, it looks like for any page we want to test, we may have to rebuild the page in Optimizely's WYSIWYG tool. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the way that Optimizely works is that once you put that JavaScript snippet on your page, you can then use the WYSIWYG editor to be able to change any item on the page. So for instance, I could go in here and I could show you, I could go in here and let's say I click on this or any other part, say for instance, or I'm sorry, let me go here. I can go here to create, and I can say I want to change this element and click on Learn More and quickly just say, webinar. And it will change the button, and that is the only thing that will change. You don't need to rebuild the page in Optimizely. You just change in the visual editor what you want to test.
All right, the next question is, not everyone is building websites for profit. What about better experiences?
So I can take this one. This is Matt from Pantheon, and I'll maybe even start out with an apology. My examples were so focused on enterprise software marketing, because it's so straightforward. But I'll take some examples of our clients. So the ACLU, Oceana, the ASPCA, those are all sites that are Drupal and WordPress that are running on Pantheon, and they aren't profit-driven, but they all certainly take donations. And if you looked at the ACLU, you've seen them in the news. They take lots of donations. Wonderful organization. And the other thing they do, or sites do that aren't so focused on converting for leads or converting for a donation or converting for a sign-up, is they need to educate. So educating their market, that could be viewed as time spent on a site or the number of viewers watching a video to its entirety. And I'm going to connect this to another question I saw come up about suggestions on how to test X or Y. And what I shared in the beginning was about our tools is Optimizely, or a similar testing tool, is step 2. The first step is, what is it that you want to change? And that's where Google Analytics and something that allows you to do some heat mapping make it really easy to look at what are people doing now and what would you rather they do, and then build your own tests. I don't think there's a lot of depending on every organization, every website, every team is different, and testing should be based on getting people that visit your website to sort of take the actions that you want them to take and have the best experience possible. So I don't think there's many canned answers outside of the some basic conversion tests.
Yeah, and I can add on to that too. Here at Optimizely, we do about half of the campaigns that we run are experiments, and the other half is really to improve the user experience. So as you saw with the New York Times example, if we know that we know some sort of information about the user, let's say they're a media company or they're constantly looking at our over-the-top products, then maybe we want to surface different content that is relevant to that, so that it's easier for them to find that content and learn more about our product based on their past behaviors or information we already know about them. So user experience is definitely key to one of the ways that we're using our product.
All right, looks like this one is for the Optimizely side. How do you account for responsive design when A/B testing? Do you need to run 2 unique tests, or can Optimizely handle this already?
Yeah, so with responsive design, one of the things that there's 2 ways you can handle that. One is you can target a particular experience to a device. So we could say, mobile device, iPad, or desktop. You can also target to specific devices that have varying screen sizes. That's one way, and you could, create that experience for mobile and only target to mobile. The other option is in all of our experiences. What you can do is there's this little code editor up here at the top. And let me just start here. So what you can do is you can run custom JavaScript, or you can run custom CSS. So you could write your media queries in here so that you could have one experiment that can run across multiple devices, and then you can account for the responsive design. And then we do have this cool little tool right here where you can see what this would look like in a tablet, or you can see what it would look like in the mobile, so that you can quickly tell, based off very common media queries, what that experiment is going to look like.
All right, jumping into the next question. That is and Matt, this might be for you, is the conversion increase because it's a better design, or just because it's net new?
Oh, right. So I'd assume that is referring to, we launched a new homepage and it looked like conversions went up and traffic to our new desired pages went up, and it's a new design. So is it just, are all those numbers going up because we introduced something new? So maybe, but I don't think so. So first, if we were to have implemented this with more thought, and for me, more thought would have just taken longer, and I wanted to get this out the door quickly and start measuring results. What we could have done with our own cookie mechanism is shown this only to new visitors. So if you've been to our site in the last 30 days, you're not included in the experiment. Only net new traffic will be included in the experiment, and test that subgroup, because there shouldn't be the kind of visitor bias that have seen our site before. And again, part of what Optimizely's tools or other tools allow you to do is kind of measure for the complexity of what that means, that there's cookie blocking, ad blocking technology out there, and so that's where the confidence interval machinery becomes really important. That when you're looking at results, how confident can you be that these results will hold true, and that you can implement those changes knowing that you should see those new conversion rates into the future, new web behavior into the future.
All right, jumping into the next one. Matthew, this might be for you, and that is, hi, what are some approaches to A/B testing available for sites that are SPAs, using, for instance, AngularJS, built on top of WordPress?
So I think I'm just going to add a comment here. One of the things that we see with our customer base, both in Drupal and WordPress, is the notion of headless CMS, or decoupled, where Drupal and WordPress are serving as content repositories and leveraging permissions and publishing, and then the web presentation layer is not always handled by the Drupal or the WordPress application, but it's handled out of a custom like Node app. Or in this case, Angular. So, to Optimizely team, do you have how does the JavaScript include work when you're not interacting directly with a CMS system, and page generation might be more dynamic?
Yeah, so single-page apps is one of the things that we can we definitely work with a lot here at Optimizely, both with React and also AngularJS, for instance. So one of the things that you would definitely want to use as a developer is our JavaScript SDK. With that JavaScript SDK, you can control every single aspect about when a experiment is ran and when it should make the changes. So, for instance, just kind of going to our developer site, we do have an entire area in our documentation. If I go over to web, and we do have an entire area for how to deal with single-page apps. Under topics here, single-page apps. So it talks about how you can use our activation methods. We do have built-in things for polling, how you can hook into your route change information, things like that. So I really encourage you to visit developers.optimizely.com, where we have a lot of documentation on how you can work with single-page apps.
All right. The next question is, since it's client-side, is there a flash of non-modified content when the page loads, or is there a delay while it's hidden?
Yeah, great question. So one of the things, so what we try to do, or what we ask, is that you put the Optimizely snippet as far in the head as possible. So that gives us the knowledge of what's going to be changed on the page, so that there is not flashing. Now, there can be cases that you may not want to load everything directly when you are. So, for instance, let's say you're changing something at the bottom of the page. You don't necessarily need to load that change as part of the snippet. So, to cut down on the snippet size, one of the things and one of the options that we give you is the ability to do synchronous versus asynchronous timing. What that will do is it will lower the snippet size so that it's a very small footprint at the top of your head. So that if you know something is going to be changing a little bit lower on the page, then maybe you want to load that in asynchronously. But if you're going to be changing, for instance, something above the fold, perhaps a headline, something like that, then you probably would want to keep that as synchronous, so that we know that that's going to change, so you don't experience flashing. But we definitely give you, as a developer, control over the different timing, so that you can ensure that there's not a page flash.
I'm just going to add one follow-on to that. Is we found Optimizely's JavaScripts to be pretty lightweight. In terms of issues that developers will face with render blocking JavaScript and getting done on speed tests for that, we haven't had a problem with Optimizely. We have had multiple other problems with different ad tech, and this isn't one of them. So I think we are working, by the way, on a blog post talking about render, like JavaScript and CSS blocking when you're trying to load them up front and you're getting done on speed tests. So look for that on our blog in the next few weeks.
Yeah, and just to kind of, I guess, talk about that a little bit more, Optimizely is used, and if you go to, for instance, the New York Times or CNN, major media companies that get lots of hits, you'll see that at the top of their page. So, just adding on, it's a very lightweight snippet that's used by the top brands, in the world.
All right, jumping to the next question. What performance implications / load increases are there due to the addition of the Optimizely JavaScript?
Yeah, so just kind of a little bit more about that. So this is, so the baseline is about 60 or 70 kilobytes. Of course, any amount of code that you put into that snippet, because it does, have all of your JavaScript and code to make the changes, does add to that. However, if you choose something that's asynchronous versus synchronous, if it's asynchronous, it won't be in that snippet. It'll be loaded in after the fact. But it's a very, very minimal footprint to get a lot of additional functionality.
All right, going on to the next question. How does Optimizely differ from Google Optimize?
So one of the things that we can, so with Google Optimize, so we've been around, we've been doing this for the past 6 years. I think one of the main differentiators between what we're doing and what Google Optimize does is our stats engine. We worked with PhD grads from Stanford to develop really a new revolutionary way to handle statistics. I think that's definitely one of the main differentiators. I think as well as our suite of products, we're one of the only, if not the only, that can do full stack. So, for instance, if you're, most the people on the call are PHP Drupal developers. We have a PHP SDK, so that if you don't want to put the JavaScript snippet on your page, if you want to do everything in the back end, we're the only ones that allow you to do that. And plus the whole omni-channel, being able to test not only on your mobile devices, but your website, and then also even over-the-top devices as well. I think those would be the main differentiators between us and Google.
All right, we've got time for a couple more questions, unless, Matt, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, I just wanted to make just one comment based on that comparison question, and then there was a comment about somebody feeling that this had a feeling of a commercial for Optimizely, and I think, number one, it's kind of the Pantheon way to address these things and not let them sit out. So we do 2 webinars a month. We try to have partners on our webinars, pretty much every one of them, and we don't always have another company that is a commercial entity that sells software like we do. But we also get we talk to a lot of marketers and developers, and A/B testing is one of the topics that comes up regularly, and we use Optimizely, and we have had a great experience with them, and we know it works extremely well on our platform because we see it in use on thousands of websites, and that's why we invited them to join us. There are other technologies out there, and if that is a big request, then we could probably put together, with our agency partners, we could put together a list of similar technologies. So let us know, reply to the email that you'll get tonight or tomorrow that thanks you for joining us, and let us know if you want any additional information about A/B testing.
Right. We're going to take 1 or 2 more questions. The next one is, for a small B2B or nonprofit site, what is the minimum sample size to obtain meaningful A/B test results?
Yeah, so the minimum sample size is really dependent on what type of or how much of a change you're trying to recognize. So on our website, we actually have a sample size calculator. So for instance, if I was trying to, so first off, you have to determine what's your baseline conversion. You can get that from your analytics platform. You can also set up an event in Optimizely to figure out what that baseline conversion is. So if I wanted to determine, see a 20% change to that 3%, I would need 12,000. Now that's a large one, so if I wanted to, look at, a 5% change, it's going to go up. So it really depends on what your baseline conversion is, and then what type of effect that you want. And then also too, this 90%, this is your kind of your error rate a little bit. So this statistical significance. So yeah. So I would suggest going to the sample size calculator and playing around with that to see what is the minimum sample size you would need. Oh, and one other thing to add on to that too is that the stats engine, because a lot of people don't know their baseline conversion rates, it will tell you how many remaining people are going to need to be included in the experiment to become statistically significant. So we do tell you in our results page as well.
All right, I'm going to sneak one more question here. That is, does the Optimizely.js work with React or Angular web applications where the DOM is managed by a JavaScript renderer?
Yeah, so once again, kind of going back to over on the developer site, we do have a whole area on dealing with single page apps. That is one way. Another way too is to use our full stack product, which allows you to do the testing on the, for instance, the JSON response that comes back, or how that area is rendered. But I would definitely go back over to developers.optimizely.com and read about the different options we have for dealing with single page apps.
Alrighty guys, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have any questions or feedback, please visit our website where you'll find a contact us page, and we'll put you in touch with the best member of our team. Have a great weekend, everyone.